Drowsy driving is a very real problem and can have some very disastrous, deadly results. Each year, over 100,000 crashes occur when a driver falls asleep or dozes off behind the wheel. Oddly enough, that statistic alone doesn't seem to mean much, maybe because it isn't illegal to be drowsy while driving, but it should be. Let's compare drowsy driving against some of the other well-known driving statistics. An independent report from a well-known and well-respected insurance company states that 25% of crashes are a result of cell phone distractions, and more than 32% of fatal accidents are alcohol-related. Now, compare those stats against this. In a recent poll, 37% of respondents stated that they have fallen asleep while driving within the last year. That statistic then leads to 17% of fatal vehicle accidents being attributed to drowsy driving. That's 1 in every 6 fatal accidents. As a professional driver, you may find yourself on routine trips that sometimes become so second nature that you find yourself almost on autopilot part of the time. And at times, the routine becomes so mundane that you find yourself struggling to stay focused and alert. As studies have found, this inattentiveness happens often and for a variety of reasons. It can often be traced back to a lack of proper rest, poor diet, or just simple boredom while driving. Imagine this. The glare from the sun warms your body and begins to make you feel drowsy. Boring commercials on the radio have pushed your mind to the brink of numbness. You press forward, not realizing that the sleepiness is gradually impairing your reaction time, vision, and good judgment. Eventually, it will lead to a fatigue level where your brain will automatically lapse into a phase called microsleep, which will last 3 to 4 seconds. When that occurs, your vehicle will be traveling at a high rate of speed without a conscious alert driver for that 3 to 4 second period. At 65 miles per hour in that short span of time, your vehicle would have traveled more than the length of a football field. Now, that may not sound like a lot of distance for a vehicle on the highway, but take a moment and imagine a football field. Now, imagine that same football field loaded with people from end zone to end zone. It's a lot of people. And all it takes for you, your family, and your organization to be dramatically affected is for you to take a micro nap while driving through that football field. As a professional driver, you may have experienced dozing off before. And as a professional, you probably know a few tricks to stay awake. You've learned to make some adjustments and learned how to deal with it. But statistics are showing that drowsy driving isn't getting better. And with all those tricks, techniques, and adjustments, it's still getting worse. We need to wake up to this simple fact and begin to actively work toward real solutions.
Lack of sleep, tired.
I got these schedules that I gotta meet, and I gotta be in a certain place at a certain time.
They've got these long hauls and loads to do. They gotta deliver them on time. You don't have time for a break, you know. Yeah, your time is money. When you got a load, you gotta deliver it.
You know, I think some of these new drivers just aren't quite used to it yet.
Too much going on. You know, you got kids, you got the wife at home, you got mortgages to pay, people holding double shifts, sometimes triple shifts. And you get these long, open stretches of road. Boy, there's almost a hypnotic state about it.
Research has shown that 41% of drivers admit that they have nodded off while driving. Those who have experienced microsleep are not even aware of it, and therefore don't even realize that they're driving unconscious. Obviously, this is a very dangerous situation. Clearly, lack of adequate sleep is the #1 factor. We live in a world where getting by on as little sleep as possible is not only accepted, but is often encouraged.
Eight hours is really plenty because that's a third of a day, but 6 hours, depending on what kind of work you're doing.
7.5 hours, about right.
Well, for me, I'd say maybe 7.
8, I'd say, is good. Not that I get that every day.
It's hard to say. I think it's different for everyone.
Well, I think the sort of standard is 8, but heck, most of us get by on probably 5, maybe 6, sometimes even a little less than that.
As you can see, the answer varies from person to person, depending on a number of factors like health, diet, and age. The right number of hours for one person may not be enough for another. While experts generally recommend 7 to 9 hours a night, each individual must determine the right amount of sleep for his or her own body. If you do not feel rested, alert, and fully awake when you are getting into your vehicle, it's a strong indication that you may not have had enough sleep. Getting adequate sleep so that you are awake and alert for work is your responsibility. It's a part of your job and should be given the same level of importance that you would give being a safe and conscientious driver. Make adjustments to your schedule and be sure to give your body enough time to rest. But what do you do when you find yourself fighting off that drowsy feeling?
I'll pull off to the road, off the side of the road, maybe find an exit. If I can find a restaurant to grab a cup of coffee or a Coke, something with caffeine in it.
I'm a big believer in coffee. Stop in and get a lot of, truck stop coffee.
I just try to pay attention to the road. I don't try to stare at any one thing because then I might nod off. Constantly be looking around, constantly checking my mirrors.
If it's cold out, putting down the windows, blasting the AC if it's hot out, generally keeps me awake. I've gone to the lengths of pouring ice cold water on my lap, smacking myself in the face, pinching myself as hard as I can.
You can roll down the window, get a breeze for a minute. Eventually, that's not going to work. You can turn the music up. That'll work for a little while. That's not going to work. The best thing to do when you're drowsy, don't play with it. Pull over.
Those are some good ideas, but the best one of all is if you find yourself fighting to stay awake and alert while driving, to pull over and take a break. In other words, make a stop. It's a good idea to consult with your supervisor beforehand and become familiar with your organization's policy about stops and breaks from the road and when fighting off driver fatigue. Research on drowsy driving incidents also points to another factor, the time of day during which you're driving. Nighttime driving shows high rates of drowsy driving incidents, and this is related to a phenomenon called the circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is simply referring to the body's natural clock and to the natural ability to sleep during nighttime hours and to be awake during daytime hours. When we shift this natural pattern, say by working a graveyard shift or by driving through the night, our bodies are thrown off balance. They naturally want to sleep during the dark hours of the night and at the same time be awake during the light part of the day. So you can see the problem if you should happen to work a night shift. This phenomenon becomes the cause of accidents for those people who work nights, early mornings, or rotating shifts. To help counteract this effect, it is recommended that you create as much darkness as possible in your sleeping space. Blackout window coverings are specifically made and available to help achieve a nighttime effect. You may also want to eliminate noise or distractions while you sleep. Ask family members to respect your sleeping hours by not entering the room or creating much noise while you're sleeping. Earplugs are also a big help in blocking out sounds that may awaken you during a deep sleep. And try to maintain a consistent schedule. Go to bed and wake up at about the same time every day. Maintaining a regular sleep schedule is good for everyone, but for the shift worker, it is essential. While stress has become a part of daily life, it can sometimes lead to an overload of your mental alertness, and it can contribute to fatigue. Under periods of high stress, paying closer attention to your body's needs for sleep, nutrition, and exercise can help. Extended periods of high stress can also lead to chronic fatigue and sleep disorders such as sleep apnea. When these conditions go untreated or unrecognized, they can become a big threat to your health and your ability to stay alert. So, if you find that you're having difficulty feeling fully refreshed after a long night's rest, it may be a good time to consult with your supervisor and seek professional medical attention. Keep in mind that if your body is unable to get a decent amount of rest, or if you keep yourself awake for more than 20 hours, you may experience the effects that are equivalent to that of a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08%. In other words, your driving behavior and skills will resemble that of a drunk person. What we eat and drink has a big impact too. So, just like how your vehicle needs the right fuel to run well, so does your body. To function at its best and to keep you mentally alert, your body needs a proper balance of carbohydrates, protein, and healthy fats. Most of us know the feeling of being sleepy after a big meal or after eating certain foods like turkey. But one of the big culprits to after-lunch drowsiness is fast foods. When you're on the road, fast food is easy, quick, and convenient. And it's often overloaded with ingredients that slow down your blood flow, which brings good, clean oxygen to the brain in order to keep it awake and alert. So you'll want to avoid these unhealthy foods in favor of healthy ones in order to be at your best. Replacing unhealthy food choices with healthy ones can be a tough habit to get into. So I would suggest that you start by substituting the snacks. Granola, trail mix, sunflower seeds, beef jerky, protein bars, and water are all easy and great choices over chips, fries, and colas. Remember, your life is worth the effort. After consuming any meal, blood and energy are diverted from the brain to the digestive tract, causing the brain to lose some of its power to stay focused. The heavier the meal, the greater the effect. To counteract this effect, eating smaller quantities at more frequent intervals can also help in fighting off fatigue. During a long road trip, eating a small snack at least once every 2 hours can help minimize the impact of too much food all at once when you finally do stop for a meal. The specific effects vary from person to person, so you'll have to pay attention and become aware of how your own body reacts to certain food groups. You're looking for what quantities and types of food create that sleepy feeling, and then make the adjustment and avoid those foods when driving. Staying hydrated is important too. Even mild dehydration can have harmful effects on the body, causing headaches, fatigue, irritability, and confusion. So, drinking plenty of water and other hydration-related beverages, such as sports drinks, can be as much a part of your driving routine as checking the mirrors. Equally important and somewhat obvious, you should never consume any alcohol when you plan to get behind the wheel. Even small quantities are not safe. Of course, medications are also a big concern. Although you may just want to stop the sniffles, a cough, or some minor aches and pains, medication can greatly affect your ability to think and react effectively. And although the medication may not state how it will directly affect your ability to stay awake and alert while operating a motor vehicle, it is your primary concern and responsibility to operate the vehicle safely. Also, keep in mind that some medications can have long-term effects on your mind and body. Therefore, it is very important that you consult with your supervisor, doctor, and pharmacist about any prescription or over-the-counter medication you may be taking and how it may affect your ability to operate a motor vehicle. Even though you may have taken the medication while off duty, it is still your responsibility to notify your supervisor that you are under medication. So, what do you think are some of the outward signs of drowsy driving that you can easily identify? Difficulty focusing, frequent blinking or heavy eyelids, trouble keeping your head up, drifting, swerving in your lane or unintentionally crossing lanes, inability to clearly remember the last several miles driven, missing exits or traffic signs, yawning repeatedly, being jarred to attention by the sound of your tires touching rumble sticks, feeling restless, irritable, or aggressive. Once you know what to look for, you can begin to implement an early warning system and then become more alert and be a much safer driver.
I think people who don't plan properly and wait till the last minute, like I've done in several cases, tend to push themselves and try to stretch that extra mile of driving.
Hey, you got to make a delivery. You got to get it there on time. You can't pull over and sleep for 3 hours. You're going to be late.
Your boss says, hey, it's got to be there by 3 o'clock. It's got to be by 3 o'clock. That's my business, you know. I mean, without that, I don't get paid.
Obviously, you need to do what you got to do for the job.
Well, there's a lot of pressure. You know, people have a lot of stress going on.
Different reasons, but none of them are worth your life.
Obviously, there are many reasons why people try to push themselves to drive further and longer than what is safe. But experts point to our lifestyles as the main culprit. We get caught up in our work and our daily living, and it becomes easy to forget that sleeping is a very real and very necessary part of our daily life. If we follow the advice of medical professionals, sleep should consume 1/4 to 1/3 of our day. To some, that's a lot of our valuable time. Time that we would much rather spend doing something productive or fun, right? Frequently, it simply comes down to the need to earn a living. Time is money. How often have we heard that one? For those who drive for a living, that means that the more time spent behind the wheel and on the road, the greater the income. It's tough to argue that people should just lower their standard of living so that they can afford to get more sleep. But we all know that that isn't going to happen for most of us. So, what would happen if you did have an accident?
If I had an accident, depending on how bad it was, it could end your career.
Wow. I think incredibly. Depending on the accident, I wouldn't be able to get to work, I wouldn't be able to make money, and the system we live in, those are two necessities to keep on living.
In someone in my line of work, an accident is a killer for the career. As you can imagine, no one wants to hire a driver who gets into wrecks.
Let's face it, employers don't want to hire high-risk drivers, and all it takes is one accident and you become in the high-risk category, so you got to be careful about that.
Obviously, none of us ever plan to have an accident, but they do happen, and they can really mess things up for a lot of people, your family, friends, and coworkers. Let's look at just a few more things to help keep you from becoming a drowsy driving statistic. For those drivers who know that they're going to be on the road for long hours, the most important thing you can do is to plan your trip. You know where and when you'll have to stop for fuel. Do the same for your body. Planning to take breaks along the way to eat, exercise, and sleep will make your trip a lot more comfortable and much safer. If you're planning a sleep break along the way, take whatever you may need to make yourself comfortable, such as a pillow and adequate blankets. If you find yourself experiencing the symptoms of drowsy driving, caffeine can also help, but be careful because caffeine can give you a temporary energy boost that can also be followed with a crash. It takes about 30 minutes to enter your bloodstream, and the effects last only 2 to 3 hours. So don't rely on caffeine as a replacement for sleep, rather as a temporary pick-me-up. Getting out of your vehicle is also a good idea. Take a break, get off the road, stop and do some exercises. Simple toe touching, waist bends, knee bends, lunges, and back stretches are all good exercises to increase your heart rate a bit. Walking is also one of the easiest ways to get your blood flowing. Just a quick few minutes walking around a park area can make a refreshing difference, and this will get some clean air into your bloodstream and into your brain for better alertness. Finally, don't be in such a rush to get to your destination. Getting there alive is far more important than getting there sooner. Let's do a quick review of the steps you can take to avoid drowsy driving. Get an adequate amount of sleep. If you work nights, counteract the circadian rhythm. Make a stop if you're too tired to continue driving. Exercise while on a stop. Eat healthy foods. Drink plenty of water. Plan your trip. Have a caffeinated beverage for a short-term pick-me-up. Don't be in too much of a hurry to get to your destination. When it comes to driving, taking care of you, the driver, is just as important as taking care of your vehicle. You wouldn't expect your vehicle to operate without fuel and regular maintenance. Do the same for yourself. You'll be a better, safer driver. Have a safe trip.